Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Men with Issues on our brand new channel. Hope you like it over here. It's nice here. We have our own channel, which Justin can actually, access, which is nice, right, Justin? He's in the middle of his coffee. Look, I caught him right in the middle of coffee.
Yeah, he's keeping me in the dark.
You know what? I didn't let him know that we actually made $1.3 billion last year on the show. That ain't right. That can't be right because we're not monetized at all. We lost money. Let's be honest. We lost money, but we had a good time losing it. Justin, you had a good idea earlier. You said, why don't we explain who we are as if this was the first show, because it is the #1 show for this channel. So since you had that great idea, by all means.
I was like that.
Hey, I can talk all day. I mean,
okay, fair enough.
You need all this practice.
For those of you watching or listening later on in the podcast, me and Zach are both heat and air guys. Have been for several years. Have done different things on YouTube, heat and air related. Zach a whole lot longer than me. And I think initially this was kind of your idea. You created a channel where you could talk about stuff not related to heat and air. And I kind of jumped on the bandwagon and thought it was a great idea, and the rest is history. So that's where it comes from.
Yeah, that's pretty much my story too. I mean, I came up doing HVAC work from the time I was able to work. I mean, when I was a teenager, 14-year-old, up until really just recently. I still do it every now and then, but just recently I just stopped pretty much doing it all together, except for an odd or in service call, and I just do podcasts and stuff. And one of the things that I really enjoy doing is why this show was created is just venturing out into a different area. I mean, the first few podcasts I did when it was Man with Issues was just talking about, like Susie was on there. She's in the chat. Susie's adoption and issues with her mother, finding her biological mother, whom she termed biohazard, as I recall. Talked to Ralph about the same thing. He was adopted. Talked to Gil about drug addiction. I just wanted to get away from, just doing HVAC, because I figure there's other things that life is meant to become, and I felt like it was a transition point. And I think Beaver kind of caught on with that and said, that's something that he wants to be part of, because he was feeling the same thing, I guess, wanting to do something else. And here we are doing it, right?
Yep.
And it's a great way. I'm going to go ahead and put it right in there. Hey, look, man. It's my Bible. It's a great way to get word out on that, which wasn't happening in HVAC. And the more we do that, the more I know that we're doing something good and justified and a greater work than, I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel like it's a greater thing than I have ever done up until now, as far as what would benefit others. So.
Well, I think it has the potential to reach a broader audience too. When you're doing heat and air service calls and putting them on YouTube, like some homeowners may be interested in that, but it's kind of a tight knit group of people that watch that type of stuff. Whereas this, I feel like, can go to a lot more people, and people can relate to this stuff a whole lot more than what they can heat and air videos. So
I think so. I think it's more fun. I mean, I loved what I did, and I still love what I do, because we do conversations on other channels about that sort of thing. I really do enjoy that. But there's something about this. I mean, it's really summed up. There's a clip I have at the end of the show, which I told you about. It's from the movie Courageous. And the guy in his speech, which we're going to see at the very end of the show, he's talking about how hobbies and jobs and stuff like that have no value eternally. They have no value beyond this world. So in that respect, it's not that they're valueless, because they can give you things, they can give you character growth, but they pale in comparison to some of the other stuff we're going to be talking about. It's just a job, and to me, it is just a job. Do you want to be good at it? Sure, but there's so much as far as greater things to talk about. So that's why we're here doing this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and since this is the first show, and as you can see, it's called Masculinity, which was your idea. What made you want to do a show on masculinity, especially as our first show?
I don't know. I mean, as far as the first show, I just thought it was a good topic. But the reason why I thought it was a good topic in general was just kind of the world we live in, and the way that the way masculinity is portrayed by the world today, and how it's portrayed as being negative, in other words, and how I think that it's actually the reason why things are going the way that they are is because the failure for men to be as masculine as what they used to be.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think masculinity is it's almost, it carries a negative tone. I mean, long before they called it toxic masculinity, which is basically, I guess, taking certain aspects of being masculine that are negative and turning them into a negative. But I think the term masculine for a long time has been a negative, and the term feminine or feminist or whatever you want to call it has been grown into a positive. Now, I don't know where that came from, because I don't think masculine is negative. In fact, I think masculine is critical as a part of how we act, how the world survives. And I think it's all positive. Do men do bad things? Absolutely. That's across the board. That's issues across the board. I think, I really think we should play the Gillette thing to start with, because that kind of describes some of this stuff. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
A lot of guys and girls out there saw this ad years ago from Gillette. I think it's probably just a couple years ago, actually. And it was in response to this whole toxic masculinity movement. So I'm going to play the ad right now. You can check it out again, refresh your memory, and we'll be right back.
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sexual harassment.
Masculinity.
Is this the best a man can get? Is it? We can't hide from it.
Sexual harassment is taking over.
It's been going on far too long. We can't laugh it off.
What I actually think she's trying to say.
Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
But something finally changed.
Allegations regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment.
And there will be no going back. Because we believe in the best in men.
Men need to hold other men accountable.
Smile, sweetie. Come on.
To say the right thing. To act the right way.
Bro, not cool. Not cool.
Some already are. In ways big
Yo, men.
and small.
I am strong.
But some is not enough.
That's not how we treat each other, okay? Okay.
Because the boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow.
I just realized we both shaved, and it has nothing to do with that was a Gillette ad. That's just a coincidence. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's funny.
That was not planned at all.
All right, looking at that again, I mean, there's things that pops out. One of the funny things that pops out to me right off the bat is when they go to like the news, there's a lady in there that was reading a news story about toxic masculinity, and you see her face, and I'm pretty sure that's the Young Turks. I don't know if you know who those are, the Young Turks, but they're a left-wing news organization. It's like, that is weird that in the Gillette commercial, they didn't use ABC or CBS. They used the Young Turks. That just kind of struck me. Not that that has too much of a significance. There is a small significance to me about what their perception is of the world based on who they watch. It's kind of funny. But what did you see there? I mean, when you see that, what is your initial reaction or your reaction now after a couple of years?
I guess the thing that I get from that is they're portraying that being a masculine man, that you basically condone bullying, that you condone I don't know what they're trying to portray about the whole guy with the woman walking by and the other dude walking up saying, "Oh, that's not cool." Like, what is he going to do? Is he going to try to have a conversation with her? Is he is he being a predator towards her? Like, what are they trying to portray there?
I don't know. Maybe it's an aggression thing. I don't know if it's aggression because males are, more aggressive in general. But I don't know. One of the things, I'll tell you what I saw there. I saw that guy going up in like an aggressive manner. Let's give him that. Let's say it's an aggressive manner.
Okay.
At a woman who's absolutely, I know we can debate that probably, but at a woman who's dressed provocatively, which I thought was ironic. That was in the commercial. She's in a tight-fitting shirt with short shorts on, and we're talking about toxic masculinity. So is that like toxic femininity going by?
Right.
It's just strange. It's just kind of weird. There's a lot of this stuff in this subject that seems like it contradicts itself halfway through. So that's why I think it's humorous.
Well, I think some of the big things that they, as far as toxic masculinity is what they're saying it makes boys and men be more aggressive, and that it can be, harmful. Let's see. I actually got some of this stuff wrote down here or typed up here.
Okay, so
basically they use it in a way saying that it is about domination. It's about the devaluing of women, homophobia, violence, all these things. And I think it gets back to what we've talked about before in the past of people using the most extreme thing to try to push a narrative. I don't know where in the world that like bullying is condoned. Like you encourage bullying. Nobody does that. Who encourages bullying?
Yeah, that was really funny how the examples that they use are really hard to believe that a majority of men would even condone. Much like, let's say 51% of men. I don't know who the toxic men are out there. Well, you might know the character types that they're going after, but their examples, like the kids, like you wouldn't go stop a kid from being beaten up on the street, or the guys rolling around in the backyard with all the dads lined up going, boys will be boys. If there's two boys fighting in my backyard, of course I'm breaking them up. I don't understand this. If it's, to me, we're getting back to this because we're talking about toxic masculinity versus the loss or the devoid of not having God. But because I think God is the representation of fatherhood, and none of the examples would have been condoned by God or whatever you want to say, Jesus or the Bible. None of those would have been condoned by that. So I don't know where the examples come from. It just seems erroneous.
Well, they just say like they use that masculinity as like the root of, for example, they use that as a root of men raping women or men raping even children. Which is horrible. I think we can all agree upon that. So if they're saying that mind frame comes from being a masculine man, then explain to me why, when a child rapist goes to prison, why they have to separate him from other men. Because when the men in prison find out what he's in there for child rape, they're going to hurt that dude. Because so we're talking about guys even in prison that have broke the law. They don't agree with that. And I think men as a whole don't agree with that and don't condone that. So to say that directly ties to being a masculine man is garbage.
Yeah, I think so too. In fact, I'm trying to remember some of the names of particular killers that were actually murdered in prison. I think Jeffrey Dahmer was murdered in prison. And then he had that whole thing with young boys. We won't get into that, but I do believe he was murdered in prison. So even when you're sent to prison, there is a standard above some of the stuff that they show on here and some of the stuff that you've read. Now, if that is toxic, stuff, and it's so beyond out of left field that we would never condone it, what is masculinity in its positive form? How would you describe that?
Being a strong male role model for your household.
Absolutely. I agree with that. A role model for your household, a steward of the Bible to your household. You're the teacher. You're the one making sure it gets done. And this is where we get into some of the stuff. And I think we both had the same Bible verse. I think I'll put it up on the screen. I do believe we had the same Bible verse. You correct me if I'm wrong. The Ephesians 5:23-33. Yeah. And I'm just going to read it out here. For the husband is the head of the wife. And I know people are going to be like, yeah, I don't think so. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, his body, and is himself its Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit in everything to their husbands. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he may sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, so that he may present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, so she might be holy and without blemish. Which, it starts out with, women might see that and say, the husband is the head of the wife. This is from the Bible. I absolutely agree with this. But if you read on, it is not a relationship where he is dominating or hurting her or being unfair to her. It's a relationship where he is supposed to lift her up and make sure she's taken care of.
He's supposed to be the leader and the provider for his household.
Absolutely. Actually, I don't have the verse here, but I know there's a verse in the Bible. I forget what it is. It said, those who do not, and I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember exactly, those who do not provide for their house are worse than unbelievers. And it's from the Bible. I just don't remember which verse it is, but I read it a couple times, which puts a lot of pressure and a lot of responsibility on fathers because that is their role. Everybody has a job to do. And it also assumes that men and women are different. They're not the same. I mean, you can't say. So that goes into our other issues about gender and maybe sexual immorality, because in the Bible, sexual immorality is being homosexual, whatever crazy terms we have now. I know pansexual, which I tell my children there are people that have sex with pans because I have no idea what that means. All I tell them is that it probably hurts.
Well, it leads into all kinds of other stuff too. I mean, like, for example, male privilege, the topic of male privilege over women, You can go down the rabbit hole a bunch of different ways when talking about stuff like this.
And you see that, especially someone who doesn't follow what we follow, will probably read that and go, no, that's the most sexist thing I've ever read. It starts off very sexist. But it's, to me, and they say, another word is patriarchal. We have a patriarchal society. And our patriarchal society it's not bad. I want to tell you, it's not a bad society. It's not a bad system if it's done and executed the way that it's written right there. And I'll put it back up on the screen so y'all can read it if you want to. I mean, if you read that, it's a beautiful thing. The husband loves the wife as Christ loves the church. There is no greater love. So it's not a thing where he's being, I don't even know the word, bullying or domineering or, like the husbands in every Lifetime movie, where they're just the worst person on earth. And it's just, I don't know. What do you think people, when they read that, do they think you see a husband that's just authoritative or something?
Yeah, I think they assume the worst when they read that. They assume the worst, and they feel like that you are, again, talking about male privilege, in other words, that no matter what, a woman is lesser than a man. And it's not saying that a woman is entitled to be like a slave to a man. That's people take it out of context. Just like as it says in there, the husband.
So I'll put it back up. There we go.
You took it down right when I was reading.
Sorry, I didn't mean to mess up your point.
Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her. So, and like we said, there's no greater love than what Christ loves the church. So I think when reading stuff like that, you have to be educated a little bit in Jesus and the Bible to understand what's being said here. Yeah,
because it's all about love. Love is the basis for all this stuff. And in the last 2 months, I guess it's fair. It's about 2 months. I've been reading the Bible every single day, and I'm not in any way underestimating what I'm about to say or being hyperbolic at all. But it has changed my life reading the Bible. I can tell you I'm a different person because I have read the book of John, and now I'm into Acts, and I'm about to enter Romans. And every day I look forward to reading it, and I'm blown away that the Bible is not a book that gives you a set of rules and tells you what you're doing wrong. It is explaining to you about it's the greatest love story that could ever be. And it's just opening a door to give you basically, I don't even know how you describe it, give you eternity worth of just the most awesome experience. And all they're saying is that just accept that we're basically doing this for you. And that's the only catch. And once you do, and well, there's a whole bunch of stuff because I want to go into the Holy Spirit and stuff, but that's not the show.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff there. I just want you guys to know that it has changed me in a very real way. And if it's not evident to you, it should be, because it's evident to people around me that have talked to me. And I think it's just a wonderful thing, and I'm so grateful to God for helping me do that.
Yeah.
I wanted to say it out loud. I just wanted to say it out loud.
Well, I think it's a good thing,
Absolutely. But where do we go from here? I ruined our flow, but it's one of the things I wanted to say
No,
that
you did.
because it's not exactly lined up with the subject, but it's something I wanted to say because there might be somebody out there that is hurting and is looking for something that's missing in their life, and I think this is it. I absolutely believe this is it, just based on the experiences that I've had. So if you're one of those people, there you go. So, go ahead, Justin. Bring us back.
Well, some of the notes that I had here kind of went into the way that toxic masculinity is being taught on the academic level. In other words, how the way they are portraying it is being taught to our children and young adults and college level. And it's just crazy to me. The more I researched, the more it really made me mad that they were trying to portray it this way. For example, this is what it says in social sciences, being taught. Toxic masculinity refers to traditional cultural masculine norms that can be harmful to men, women, and society overall. This concept of toxic masculinity is not intended to demonize men or male attributes, but rather to emphasize the harmful effects of conformity to certain traditional masculine ideal behaviors such as dominance, self-reliance, and competition. So in other words, they're saying dominance, self-reliance, and competition are a bad thing.
Self-reliance, that jumps out.
Self-reliance is a bad thing.
That I don't understand. That self-reliance to me is a great positive that you should be proud of, to be self-reliant.
Mm-hmm.
Every family, every person.
Competition too. What is wrong with having competition?
I think competition is great. I think I've learned that from sports throughout the years. I always think, I'm not one of those people that say, hey, everybody tried hard. I remember one time we were coaching soccer. My brother coached soccer, but he wasn't there, so I stepped in and coached it with my dad. And we had all the little kids out there. I don't remember how old they were. We said to them, and I'm sorry, this is kind of a joke, but we said to them, guys, you've always been told, the important thing is to have fun. That's untrue. You need to win. Winning is fun. But, I'm joking, but it's one of those things where you should want to win. Competition is healthy. Iron on iron sharpens, something along those lines. I forget what the exact wording is, but iron sharpens iron. If you actually have competition and you're going up against other people, whether it be at work, sports, or just in life, like a basic debate on something like this, it's going to make you better. I don't see why that's a negative, unless it's just an unhealthy competition. And there's always been unhealthy competition where people cheat, or I don't know. But in life, I think competition in general is good.
Yeah, and one of the places that I really researched was the Wright Institute, which is an institution in, I believe, San Francisco. And some of the things that they teach, and a couple of I really did some research on a couple of the professors there that teach that they're basically professors over psychology. And some of the things that they teach, like what they truly believe, is crazy to me. Like one of them argues about some of the same things that we were just talking about: dominance, self-reliance, competition, things of that nature. That those practices condone physical violence, may serve to reinforce men's dominance over women in Western societies. But she also stresses that such practices are a feature of masculinity, although not always the defining features. So again, they try to reinforce what they're saying with, well, it might not pertain to everybody, but I think there are things in there that are bad. Another one, this guy is really, really out there. I won't say his name, but he describes toxic masculinity as involving the need to aggressively compete and dominate others. And as the constellation of socially regressive male traits that serve to foster domination, the devaluation of women, homophobia, and violence. And so this is what this guy teaches to his students about masculinity. That basically it's a bad thing. That if you're a male, you are born with negative stuff already pre-programmed in you.
So I wonder if they consider just disapproval of homosexual lifestyles as homophobia. I wonder if they draw any differences between those two things. Like homophobia is not homophobia. Homosexual behavior is a sexually immoral sin, but does that, in their eyes, make me homophobic?
I guarantee you that would categorize you as homophobic.
But here's the thing, and we both probably feel the same way on this. If you saw a homosexual person, you would engage them with the same decency you would engage any other person. In fact, maybe with a little bit more zeal, because we do want to help them in our own eyes. Mm-hmm. Maybe they don't think that it's something they need help with, but in our own eyes, you know, the worst thing that we could do is be indifferent if we think we can actually save somebody, help them become saved. Mm-hmm. So in our own eyes, indifference is the worst thing. So I don't know, maybe they can appreciate that.
What they fail to understand is that just because I disagree with your lifestyle or how you choose to live your life, does not mean that I am going to disrespect you as a person. I'm going to treat you with the same kindness that I would anybody else. I don't have to agree with what you're doing to also show kindness to you, in other words. But I think they think as soon as you disagree with their lifestyle, you're somehow belittling them, or I don't know the word to describe it. You get what I'm saying, though.
I get what you're saying. In fact, I'm going to bring up the other verse because it plays right into this, because homosexuality isn't like it's some chief sin that's higher above all the other sins in the world. And
right.
let's just read right through here. It's 1 Corinthians 6, chapter 6, verses 9 through 11. Or do you not know that the unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom of God? Do not be deceived, neither the sexual immoral, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor men who practice homosexuality, nor thieves, nor the greedy, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor swindlers will inherit the kingdom of God. And such were some of you. But you were washed, you were sanctified, you were justified in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Well, I see two things there. I see that there's a whole slew of sins that fall together, and one no greater, no less than the other ones. And I also see that each one of these groups says you were washed and sanctified, which meant they turned away from that sin and went to Jesus Christ.
Right.
So there's two things that I see right there. And it kind of falls into what we're talking about, because I hate it when we talk about sin and it's made out like there's just one or two that are the ultimate sins.
Mm-hmm.
And all the other ones, you know, the rest of us who have all these other sins, we're no different than these guys. Mm-hmm. We're sinning every day. We're not special or different than these guys. We're just saying that if society views this sin as not a sin, they're wrong. It's in the book. We just read it right there. And there's more. There's spots in Leviticus too, but I don't remember. I don't have them written down right now. So,
yeah.
But it's all over the Bible, actually. I think it's in Romans as well. I'll probably read that here in the next few days.
Yeah.
Hey, look at me. I'm right on my pad, and you got to speak then.
You're not writing on no pad.
This is how I buy time. After a thought has closed and I don't know where the next thought is, I'm going to just lean down and write something. Right, I'm drawing a picture of a fence.
Yeah. Well, I just getting back to the point I was making is I don't feel like Institute should be portraying that masculinity is a bad thing, and they even have on the Right Institute, even has on their website, it says the Right Institute's psychology curriculum is carefully designed so that the students systematically acquire progressively more sophisticated knowledge and clinical capabilities.
That sounds good. Listen to that, man.
Oh yeah, they make it sound real fancy. I hate to be negative about different schools and stuff, but I just feel like kids today are being indoctrinated, not educated.
And I think there's a lack of research on the back end. Like when people go in and learn something, there's a lack of them going, well, is that true? I think if we just asked ourselves, is that true, we'd be doing a lot better off. Just getting a few sources of our own, if you will. We had the discussion before the show because you came into some information which you're going to check on. Because it's something that's very interesting to both of us. And if it checks out, we will talk about it next week for sure. But, we don't want to talk about it yet. Because it's one of those things like, is this a Facebook thing or something where someone has just written down some random stuff to get people fired up? You never know.
Right.
You never know.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to take that segue, and I'm going to here's something here because I put down these clips and stuff before the show. Something that we kind of went past it earlier, talking about God is representative of what a father is. He's our Father in heaven, and we are fathers to children here. We're supposed to be representative of Him and sort of basically try to live up to His role to us through our children. So one of my favorite people in the world is Jordan Peterson. I think he's extremely intelligent, well-spoken, and just one of the great minds of our time. And this is just a quick clip of him talking about that subject right there.
Summarize why men are in crisis now.
I think it's because in a deep level, the West has lost faith in the idea of masculinity. Now, that's no different than the death of God. It's the same thing. And Nietzsche knew what the consequence of that would be. I mean, that's most of what he wrote about, and so you'd say, well, the divine symbol of masculinity has been obliterated. Well, so then what do you expect? What's going to happen? That means masculinity is going to become weak. And especially if the symbol is also denigrated, right? Which it definitely is. So what that means is that the ideal that man could aspire to is denigrated. With your ideal in tatters, you're weak. That's definitional.
To me, that kind of sums up exactly what's happened over the last decades and decades here. Is as we get farther from God, our role model is getting farther out of sight. So we have to create our own moral structure. And because we're humans, it's horrible. It's just based on urges. And think about every bad, immoral thing you've done, whether it's sexually immoral, deviant, financially immoral. Think of all that stuff. That's who's building the current moral structure. How can it possibly work?
That's like what we've talked about before. When you take God out of it and you put man in control of what's right and what's wrong, it's going to be flawed. I don't care what way you look at it. I don't care what topic it is. It's going to be flawed because God is perfect and He's laid out the example for you through His Son, Jesus Christ, right? So when you don't try to mimic that example and you try to rely on what you feel as a man should be right or wrong, you're gonna get further and further away from what's important and what's right.
Absolutely. And we it's so special because you mentioned Jesus Christ. He was here on earth to give us the example. There was a group of us that saw that in person many, many years ago. There were people out there that saw it in person, and man, that must have been something. That really must have been a beautiful thing. The guys who travel with him, and I never knew the story, whether through apathy or not caring or just wanting to live life through my own urges and my own moral structure. Once I started learning the story, it is incredible to have him as flesh, and not only as flesh, to be literally sacrifice. You know, people say the Lamb of God. You know, because in the Old Testament, you might have people sacrificing lambs, and that's a pretty common thing. But when they refer to Jesus as the Lamb of God, he is the greatest sacrifice of all time. He gave himself and put him through what I think was the most hell that is possible. I think the crucifixion process is an example of the ultimate, most depraved, painful act that has ever occurred. And he put himself through that as a sacrifice. I don't think I believe that there is no act that's ever going to happen before or after that will rival that in intensity. And I think that's the way it was designed. I honestly believe that. I don't know if that's corroborated anywhere. That's just my personal belief. And I think for that reason, it is such a great example. And to me, it just proves everything is true. You know, the whole book is woven together so perfectly. To me, it has proven true to me. I have no doubt.
Yeah, Steve makes a good point in the chat. You know, he said, God said, my way and my thoughts are greater and higher than yours. And I think that's where people can't stand the thought of that. They can't stand the thought of not understanding or having to follow what somebody else says. They want to be independent. They want to go by what they believe is right and what's moral, instead of the example that's already been laid out for us. And all we have to do is try to follow it to the best of our ability. But we all know you're not going to follow it perfectly. It's impossible for you. You're man. You're going to sin. You're going to make mistakes daily. But yet, I don't know how else to say it.
That's it. I mean, man's imperfect. Some people think you had to be perfect to do this, and that's not. I mean, Jesus ate. Remember, Jesus had dinner with. He had dinner with hookers and tax collectors and all sorts of immoral people. He got grief from the Jewish leaders and the people he followed. Like, why are you hanging out with those people? So, why are you going to hang out with people that are already believers? Well, they already believe. You're trying to save people. You're not going to save people that already are saved. You're going to reach out to those people. And, that's why Christmas was a great example of this. Every family has drama out there. It's just a common thing. And my wife and I talked about it, and we said we're going to try to set a Christ-like example. We're going to say like because we fall short. Throughout the holiday, we fell short. But just trying to accept people that have gotten on our nerves, have done things that are immoral, have hurt the family, and just try to accept them as best we can. And I still have a ways to go on this because I have a sister out there that I haven't talked to in years. So I have work to do in this area. We're just trying to start that. And boy, it's hard because sometimes you just want to take these people and backhand them. And just you have to set a Christ-like example. And boy, it's a pain in the butt sometimes. That's all I got to say. It's tough. Yeah. Right. Said at the same time, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, I think that's what worldly people think that Christian people are looking down their nose at them, and that they're putting themselves up on a pedestal that they're perfect, and looking down on you because the Bible says they're doing something wrong. That's not the case at all. We fail daily. The difference is that we're trying to be better and trying to follow Jesus Christ and what he's laid out for us to do. And I think it gets back to what we've talked about before is like, he was perfect. He was without sin. He did nothing but good on the earth, and man killed him for it. I mean, if you just think about it just in those simple terms, he did nothing but help people and try to do good and had no sin, and we killed him for it.
Yep. For power. Think about those Jewish leaders that this guy comes along that says he is God's son, and he's like, no. They're like, no way. Because that removes all their power. Their power is gone.
Yeah, because those priests, they have put themselves up on a pedestal, and they don't want to come to the realization that they may be wrong.
Yeah. Just think about it. They go before Pontius Pilate, and Pontius Pilate, he's like, I don't want to kill this guy. This guy's, Besides, I think Pilate probably thought he was nuts, saying he was king of the Jews, or he said, "What kind of king are you?" But he didn't do anything wrong. Pilate didn't want to kill the guy. The Jewish leaders like, no, he needs to die. Even when they bring out, Barabbas, a murderer, and it's like, no, we want to kill Jesus. It just puts you into their state of mind. They were so hungry for that power because it's like an age-old story, but it's like the ultimate version of that story. It's really hard to give up that power and control. And what an illusion that is, that we have control over anything. What do we control? Right. Nothing.
Right. Nothing. Yep.
We can't control anything. It's just it's a farce. It's something you tell yourself to try to get yourself to believe.
Yeah.
I do it all the time. It's like, I can do this, I can do that. No, I just try to. Each day I'm trying to take walks down the street, and when I do that, that's I actually sit there and I talk aloud. I'll do my praying out loud. I'm sure if someone's looking out the window, it's like, what is that guy doing? But I just do it right then. I'm like, thank you for giving me this beautiful earth to look at while I'm doing this, and I try to be as open and honest as possible. And it's just, it's the right thing because it feels absolutely perfect when it's happening.
Yeah,
so.
I think we get so wrapped around. This is kind of off topic, but we get so wrapped around. Life and bills and wanting this and wanting that and, striving to do better that we fail to be appreciative of what we already have. And I think, sitting back and looking at Christmas and things like that, and watching the look on your kids' faces when they open up presents and stuff. And, I don't have much. I'm not rich by no means. But I'm thankful for everything that I have, and I'm truly blessed compared to, we'll say, majority of the world.
That's true. There's a lot of hurt out there in the world. A lot of people don't have any money, especially now because of COVID and all this other stuff going on. Wow, that would be a great transition to the COVID talk if we had time for it. There's like 10, 15 minutes left in this broadcast. I don't know if we can even talk about COVID stuff. But, thinking about this stuff, people don't follow God. They don't follow the principles of the Bible. So we shouldn't be surprised as some men, end up behaving in a way that warrants them being called toxic, because it would happen. Mm-hmm. It would happen. Men who mistreat their children, men who mistreat their wives, either by adultery or condescending, or even being physical with their wives. These aren't godly principles. These are principles of someone who is toxic. But that's not men. That's not what masculinity is. Masculinity.
I was about to say that's not principles on masculinity, because 90% of men, I'll say 99% of men out there that are masculine do not condone any of those things that they are portraying as being a direct reason of masculinity.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think most men would not condone any of that, or else they would verbally not condone it and then flirt with the line in their spare time. Because there's people out there, virtue signalers, that say, "Oh no, I never do that. I would never do that. Let me share that on Facebook. I would never do that. Type amen under this. I would never do that." And then when they get to their spare time, the truth comes out. Just like on Christmas Day, we read John chapter 3. Verses 16 through whatever it is at the end of the paragraph. I don't know. But the very end of the paragraph is a part that talks about light. Evil works in the darkness. Same thing with, this toxic masculinity stuff. It's not anything to do with masculinity. You want to call somebody toxic? It's not masculine. Masculine are traits that are inherent to men. That's all it is. A simple definition. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. And people who do these things in the darkness, that's evil. They're not willing to do it in the light. Just ask yourself, would you do this so everyone could see it? If it's no, then it's evil. Okay, more than likely. So I think that's the people we're talking about. But I think we shouldn't put masculine with it, because that's not true, or that's not right.
Not at all.
Oh man, that is like a good bookend right there.
Right.
What are we gonna do now? Now for the weather on the ones. Yeah. It's been cold here. I hope it stays. I really enjoy it. I love it. It's great.
Man, I was to really get off topic talking about weather. I I don't know if y'all are going to get it or not, but later on this week, it's going to be 80 degrees here.
Oh, it's
Like,
not going to be
I
that
mean-
hot. It's going to be 60 something later on, or about 70.
I think it's Thursday. Thursday, the high is 80. Like, holy crap.
What?
Like, we had this little cold spell too, probably not to the extreme of what y'all had, but it's been, 40s and I think we had one day that the high was like 44 or something like that. And then it got up to 50 something the following day. And then today, like the high was 60, I think. And the lows have been getting down. The lowest it was in the 20s. And then we've had a few of in the 30s lows. And now here we are less than a week from now. It's going to be 80 degrees outside. Everybody's going to turn their air on again.
I hate that. I love the cold weather. I love working outside when it's colder. I mean, I don't mean bitterly cold. The other day was like 19 degrees outside. I don't mean like that. I mean, but if it's 40 something, like today when I took the walk, it was 40 something, around 50. It was pretty nice. Long sleeve shirt. I had a toboggan on, but it was nice. I enjoyed it. So
Yeah.
I don't want too cold. Now that I'm old, I take blood pressure medicine. It's gonna be frigid out.
I think I'm gonna get spoiled with the warm weather again. I've been so used to Tennessee and Chicago that now that I've come back to Georgia, like this past summer was like, holy crap, it's hot outside, but now it gets a little bit cool outside and I'm like, I'm ready for summer again.
Oh, really? Oh, so you're the opposite, man. I like the cool weather. I enjoy it. I like going outside.
I don't really care for it.
I've always
Not
been
at all.
hot-natured, though. I mean, I was sweating on my walk. So it was like 40-some degrees. But just like when you're working when it's cold, eventually you build up a sweat after a while.
Yeah.
It's like, how's this happening? Then you go
I mean,
eat
I'm
lunch,
hot
it's
natured.
cold.
I'm hot natured too, but I would rather, when it comes to working, I would rather sweat my butt off than I would be cold. That's just how I've always been. I would rather be in a 140-degree attic working on an air handler than I would be standing outside working on a heat pump and at 10 degrees outside.
I'm with you there.
I just
That's an easy one, though, man. Make it like 25 outside. Or nah. No, I remember installing a heat pump when it was 26 degrees outside, and that was not a good day. That was cold. Because that was the high that day, and it's like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. Oh. Well, there goes off the subject for a while. And we are getting to 50 minutes. So what would you like to do, Beaver? Would you like to continue with something, or would you like to wrap it up?
So we wrap it up. You got a good video to end things up, don't you?
I do have a good one. A movie that I really, really love. It's about fatherhood. It's a Christian movie. Don't cringe or anything. It's actually a good movie. Some Christian movies are like, where'd they get these actors? But the Christian movie, this one is really good. This is going to be a speech about fatherhood that he gave at the end of the movie. And if you want to see the movie, it's called Courageous. I think it's great. I think it's one of the best movies I've ever seen. I'm going to play the clip. I guess, Beaver, if you want to say goodbye now, we can say that now, because after this clip, I guess we'll be gone, won't we?
Yeah. Well, we appreciate everybody that stopped by and everybody that listens to the podcast later on. We truly appreciate it. We just wanted a kind of a platform to talk about stuff other than heating and air, and I think it's been a good thing.
Absolutely.
So we appreciate you guys stopping by. And, as far as the whole masculinity thing, all I'm saying is, fathers, be the leader of your house. You're not just a helper. You are there to set the example, not only for your kids, but for your wife as well. And that's all I got to say about that.
Hey, well, speaking of fathers and masculinity, here's a few good examples. Hope you guys enjoy this. We'll see you next week.
As a law enforcement officer, I've seen firsthand the deep hurt and devastation that fatherlessness brings in a child's life. Our prisons are full of men and women who have lived recklessly after being abandoned by their fathers, wounded by the men who should have loved them the most. Many of these children now follow the same pattern of irresponsibility that their fathers did. While so many mothers have sacrificed to help their children survive, they were never intended to carry the weight alone. We thank God for them. But research is proving that a child also desperately needs a daddy. There's no way around this fact. As you know, earlier this year, my family endured the tragic loss of our 9-year-old daughter, Emily. Her death forced me to realize that not only had I not taken advantage of the priceless time I had with her, but that I did not truly understand how crucial my role was as a father to her and our son Dylan. Since her passing, I've asked God to show me through His Word how to be the father that I need to be. I now believe that God desires for every father to courageously step up and do whatever it takes to be involved in the lives of His children. But more than just being there, providing for them, He's to walk with them through their young lives and be a visual representation of the character of God, their Father in heaven. The father should love his children and seek to win their hearts. He should protect them, discipline them, and teach them about God. He should model how to walk with integrity and treat others with respect. And should call out his children to become responsible men and women who live their lives for what matters in eternity. Some men will hear this and mock it or ignore it. But I tell you that as a father, you are accountable to God for the position of influence He has given you. You can't fall asleep at the wheel, only to wake up one day and realize that your job or your hobbies have no eternal value, but the souls of your children do. Some men will hear this and agree with it, but have no resolve to live it out. Instead, they will live for themselves and waste the opportunity to leave a godly legacy for the next generation. But there are some men who, regardless of the mistakes we've made in the past, regardless of what our fathers did not do for us, will give the strength of our arms and the rest of our days to loving God with all that we are, and to teach our children to do the same. And whenever possible, to love and mentor others who have no father in their lives, but who desperately need help and direction. And we are inviting any man whose heart is willing and courageous to join us in this resolution. In my home, the decision has already been made. You don't have to ask who will guide my family, because by God's grace, I will. You don't have to ask who will teach my son to follow Christ, because I will. Who will accept the responsibility of providing and protecting my family? I will. Who will ask God to break the chain of destructive patterns in my family's history? I will. Who will pray for and bless my children to boldly pursue whatever God calls them to do? I am their father. I will. I accept this responsibility, and it is my privilege to embrace it. I want the favor of God and His blessing on my home. Any good man does. So where are you, men of courage? Where are you, fathers who fear the Lord? It's time to rise up and answer the call that God has given to you, and to say, I will. I will. I will.
Well, that's crap.
Stream got cut off. I love the clip so much I want to finish watching it.
I know. I was hoping you didn't cut it off and start talking to me.
I got to stop.